And God said, "Let there be
The
light."
Lord says, "Let my people go."
I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
This is the Talkin' Bible podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode. Back again for another episode of Talkin' Bible. And today I'm sitting with Jeannie and we're talking about the widow's two mites.
Two mice?
Mice. No, mites. M-I-T-E-S.
You mean the widow's offering?
The widow's offering.
Just use words we know.
I know.
Okay.
I don't even know what mite is. I think it's, well, I think
It makes me think smite.
Smite. I think the King James version might use mites, but must have been some small form of currency in Middle Age times or something. Right. But I think we call it the widow's offering or the two
widow's
small,
gift.
The widow's gift. I think the versions say two small coins or two small copper coins.
Okay, let's just keep it at that.
Yeah, let's do that. The
move
widow who
from
gave
King James to
two small copper coins.
Yeah, all right. And it appears in Luke and Mark. And this is Jesus talking to his disciples,
Yes.
right? It's another, is it a parable or is it
No,
what
this
he's
is-
literally seeing?
This is something he's literally seen and he's using it as a teaching point.
Okay, so Jesus looks up and he saw the rich dropping their offerings into the temple treasury. He also saw a poor widow dropping in 2 tiny coins. Truly I tell you, he said, this poor widow has put in more than all of them. Put in more than all of them. For all these people have put in gifts out of their surplus, but she out of her poverty has put in all she had to live on. Sitting across from the temple treasury, he watched how the crowd dropped money into the treasury. Many rich people were putting in large sums. Then a poor widow. Oh, sorry, that's the same thing in Mark.
Thing in Mark's gospel.
I just
Yeah,
thought,
that's
is
okay.
that all we're reading?
Yeah.
Just that tiny bit?
Yeah, it's just a little bit. One little teaching point.
What do you make of this little story?
Oh, it's
little
such
teaching
a powerful
point?
story because it illustrates something of what generosity is all about. That generosity that was counterproductive, counterintuitive to the culture they were living in. So in that culture, maybe some background might help, but they would walk into the temple court and the history tells us there were I think it's 13 of these big bronze pipes. I don't know how to describe it. They were like a giant trombone that just had a big opening and people would put their money into these bronze pipes and there was 13 of them where they would go and put their offerings in the court of the women, I think it was. And they would make a show about it because they'd put their coins in there, a bit like when you'd take your coins to the bank, ching, 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 and you'd hear them in these bronze pipes as they went down in tubes. And obviously it had become a bit of a show, this whole generosity thing. Look how much money I'm putting in, and the wrinkle, the ching, 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 ching would go on for ages, and it would be a show about how generous we were and how benevolent we were. A bit like today, people who are philanthropists but want to make sure that they get all the glory for it. It's a human problem. We want to, if we're going to do something generous, we want to be seen for it. And along comes a little woman and puts in 2 coins. Ding, ding. That's all, a little rattle and that's gone. And so that's the point Jesus is teaching about generosity and what really matters in life when it comes to generosity. What's a kingdom value? And that's why these few words have been used repeatedly, and we're still talking about this little woman. We don't know her name. We don't know anything about her, but poor as she's been talked about for 2,000 years.
And where would the money go?
It would go into the treasury, so it must go to these pipes and into.
But who would spend it?
It would go into the temple to be used for the upkeep of the temple, paying of the priests and the Levites and all stuff that it was basically like the church offering.
The church offering. Okay.
Think of it like the church offering.
So the rich people in this, they are just rich people. They're not like Pharisees or anything.
Oh, many of them would have been, but wealthy in general. But it doesn't seem to specifically be having a go at the Pharisees, although they certainly would have been among these people who did this. Jesus says enough about the Pharisees, how to make a show about their generosity. They would fit the category.
Why would she, out of her poverty, give everything that she had to live on?
Good question, because scholars have argued about this. Does it mean we should give up all our wealth? Is that what Jesus is saying? Give up everything, empty your bank account, transfer all your funds into the church, because you could see that's what Jesus commending this woman for doing that. So scholars go, well, is that what we should do? Should we live a life of poverty? And I think most scholars would go, no, that's not the point of the message here. That might have been significant for this woman, but this was about what this woman was doing was very similar to what the widow did in Elijah's time, where she gave her last meal to the last bit of bread and oil to cook a meal for Elijah to get provision. So it's that whole. It's more a message about the radical and complete trust that this woman has in thankfulness and gratitude and trust in God than it is about giving up all our money.
Is she trusting God here or trusting the temple?
I think her thing would be she's worshipping God with her money.
Worshipping God. Okay.
I don't think it's worshipping the temple or anything else. She sees her generosity to her church, to the temple, as an act of worship to God.
Would she expect anything from the temple?
Should she expect anything from the temple? Yes.
What would they do? Would they help her in any way?
They should have, because she's a poor widow. She's among the most vulnerable people. In that culture, widows, pretty much have nothing. There's no Centrelink, there's no social benefits. She hasn't got a husband to make money for her. She very likely, literally, that's why she's got 2 coins. She's completely trusting in God here. And the temple should have been the ones to do it, because it's all through the Mosaic law. Care for the poor, the widow, the foreigner, and the orphan. I think the point is that the temple failed at that. We talked about that with the parable of the evil farmers. They failed at that.
So why did they allow her to put all her money in?
Why did they allow it? As in, why didn't they stop it?
Yeah. If you've got next to her are the rich people putting all of these coins and everybody can hear those coins, why did the temple allow her to give everything when she had nothing?
I can think of a couple of reasons there. One is they're so focused on their own wealth. That would be the first thing. So, women... Actually, I think... I'll just come back to me. I think if you read this passage immediately before this, Jesus rebukes the wealthy, and he says they devour widows' houses for a show. It's in the passage immediately before this.
Thank you, because all my notes were on that, and I was like, did I not include that?
No, it's in immediately before. Is it immediately before?
I don't know, but it's all on that. For some reason, I have mentioned it all here.
Yes. I'm pretty sure that's it. I'm pretty sure it's the passage before that where that
Jesus gets really angry at them.
Yes, because of their failure to care for the widows, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Something like that.
Let's just look it up.
Luke 21.
Yes, I'm sure he chastises them, and then he looks over and he sees the rich droppings of their the rich droppings dropping their coins in. Am I wrong?
It's not in Luke 20, which is before that. It might be in Mark's version.
I know that in...
what's Mark's version?
Are we reading?
I've got to find it.
Mark 12.
Mark 12. Let's try that one. Mark 12, 41. I'm pretty sure that this is the case, because I think I've looked at this once before. It's just one of those things that sort of sits in your memory, but you don't remember for sure. Yes, here it is. So immediately before that, he says, beware of these teachers. This is verse 38 of Mark 12. Beware of these teachers of religious law. So he's having a go at the elites. They parade around with flowing robes and receive greetings as they walk in the marketplaces, and how they love the seats of honor in synagogues and the head table at banquets, yet they shamelessly cheat widows out of their property and pretend to be pious by making long public prayers. Because of this, they will be severely punished. And then he says the story of the widow's offering.
Thank you. I knew it was out of context.
Yes.
You can make any...
You can make anything say anything out of context.
Yes. So the way you can read it just by reading the widow's offering makes it sound like, you should give everything to the Lord. Yet, in fact, just before it, he is chastising them, saying that the priests are ripping off the widows.
Yes, that's the point of the story.
So that was why I was asking, why did they not stop her?
They should have. That's what I was saying. They should have. If they were doing their job, there wouldn't have been any poor in Israel. That's the Mosaic law. They were to care for the poor. They were to be the safety net, and they weren't. And, we talked about the parable of the evil farmers. That's why they were rebuked, because they weren't that. And so that's the point of the story, is here's a woman who is not getting what she needs from the people, and yet her trust is not in the people. Her trust is in God.
Okay, so it sounds to me that Jesus was getting annoyed that they were sort of selling a false religion.
Yes.
And that if she is giving that money to the church, she is buying into that false religion, expecting that false religion to give her something back.
Okay.
And so I see her as Jesus has seeing this woman as
I get where you're
misguided.
Going. Right.
Because of the false teachings. But it's not her fault she's misguided. She's actually hoping that the teachings of the priests and things who are out acting for themselves are going to help her.
Yes, the problem with that is that the word, I know that you said it's not her fault, but I think Jesus seems to commend her, and the language is commending. This woman has given more than all they have. So it's not like he's down on her for giving more. It's the language seems to be he's commending her for the level of commitment and sacrifice and gratitude that she has to God. So I don't see it as she shouldn't have given that. I think Jesus is saying, we don't know. Jesus might have called Judas over and said, "Hey, open up the money and give us some." We don't know that. It's not in the text, and it's not referred to in the text. But Jesus doesn't rebuke her for giving everything.
I don't think that's. I think he does find that admirable. I think
he sees the admirable.
She believes that they are going to help her.
Yeah,
that
and that's
the
why he's
temple
able to
or
say
God, if not both,
are
going to help her. But he's arguing before it, saying, "Well, God might help you, but the religion that they have created around this is not going to help you."
That's exactly right.
And in fact, we know that God destroys the temple.
Yes, he ultimately destroys the temple.
Yes, because it is a place of thievery, or what does he call it?
He calls it a den of thieves.
A den of thieves.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so should we not think of it as a den of thieves in this statement here?
Yes, we should. Once again, we should ask ourselves and make sure that we don't become the den of thieves ourselves. Are we as a church, are we robbing widows of their, is the church doing what it needs to do? I mean, in a few minutes' time, we're going to have Julie coming in, and you'll hear it on future episodes. You're going to have Julie coming in and making food up. We want to make sure that we've got 40 people coming in for food tomorrow. We want to make sure that we are continuing to do that, because if we're not doing those things, then we potentially aren't doing. We're potentially becoming like the den of thieves ourselves. If the church only exists for its own benefit, then we are in shaky ground. But we can evaluate and go, are we continuing to think of others, live for others, add value to others? And then if we can do that, hopefully people will be generous for the right reasons. But I think all of that's probably potentially getting beyond what Jesus is trying to say in this story. He is definitely trying to teach his disciples about the nature of what true generosity is compared to the generosity that he's rebuked in these other ones who were making a show of their generosity but were really selfish at the core.
So what does he actually say? "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them. For all these people have put gifts in out of their surplus, but she out of her poverty put in all that she had to live on." So you read that as a positive thing?
I think that's a commendation. I think you find most scholars would too. He is commending Jesus. Jesus is commending this woman, pardon me, because the posture of her heart is one of sacrifice and gratitude. I don't want to say gratitude because we don't know that, but complete reliance upon God. That she wouldn't be giving money. No one's forcing her to give this money. She wouldn't be giving this money unless her heart was aligned with God in such a way that she saw God as the only one who could meet her needs.
I have always thought of it like that, yet I need to remind myself, Jesus is sitting right next to her. She's missed Jesus. She's still giving the money to the church, to the temple. But he's sitting right there.
Yeah. I don't think Jesus would have a problem with that either.
But assuming he had been teaching there, because that's why he goes to these places.
Yeah, I don't think Jesus would have ever stopped any of those people from giving into the temple treasury, though.
I'm just saying this, and I don't think he would have stopped anybody giving to the temple treasury either.
I think he would have actually expected it. I think Jesus did it himself. I sat down with Adrian yesterday. We talked about the parable of the temple tax, the story of the temple tax, and Jesus says, well, technically I am exempt from paying that because it's my house, but I'm still going to pay it anyway. So I don't think Jesus would have had a problem with that.
Because it's scriptural?
Because it was a normal practice, part of Jewish practice was that they would give to the temple.
But where he had the problem was that the temple or the people of the temple were not behaving correctly.
Yeah.
They were speaking of false religions. They were false prophets.
Yes, they were abusing their power.
Well, they were meant to be looking after the widow and giving her 2 mites.
Yes, they should have been. She
them.
should not be in a place where she needs to give her last 2 mites, and I guess that's right. Jesus is commending her heart despite her circumstances, but I can't imagine that. We don't know for certain, but what do I know of Jesus is I can't imagine that Jesus didn't do something about that, because Jesus would not have been empowering to send a woman off with nothing. So we don't know anything about the fact that he knows it's her last money. I mean, either that's a prophetic word or he's had a conversation with her or one of his disciples has had a conversation with her. But I think there's stuff that's not being told to us because it's not the main purpose of the meeting, the main purpose of the story here. But it would not be God's way to send off a woman with no money.
Well, we assume that he would bless her.
I assume
that's the God that we
would.
want to believe in.
And I assume he would. I find it very hard for him just to commend the person and say, see you later. That's what James rebukes the church for in his writing. You say, hey, come here, and then you see a person in need and you say, be blessed, be well fed, off you go, brother, have a good day. And he says, if you do that, the love of God is not in you. So James is calling his church, the church, if you see a need, you meet that need. If it's within your ability to meet that need and you don't, you do not have the love of God in you. So I have to assume that there was more went into this story that's not recorded here. But I don't think that's the point of the story, because it's been inserted here to show the difference between these people, these religious leaders who are making a show of their generosity but really are wicked and selfish at the core, and this person, this woman who's totally reliant upon God and is generous and actually gives more because it cost her more. And generosity costs us. If it doesn't cost us, it's not generosity. And so if you look at it, I always say it's about equal sacrifice, not equal amount. This woman's sacrifice was much greater, and that's what God will honor. And I think there's another, I thought it was said it in one of these versions, but maybe I'm conflating two stories where it says this woman's story will be told wherever she goes. It's obviously not in there.
Does it say about that? I didn't think so. Does it?
No, I must be conflating another story somewhere where it said as long as, wherever this gospel is preached, this woman's story will be told. I think I'm confusing it with another story.
I do that all the time. I'm glad to know it's not just me.
I do. I'm pretty sure. Maybe it's the woman. Maybe it's the woman who's anointed with oil. I can't remember.
But do you think she's hoping to purchase a blessing?
I don't know. I don't think I can comment on what her reasons are because we don't know.
No, but you also don't know what happened after.
No, and I'm saying that. I don't know. I just have to assume, based on what I can see here, at face value, Jesus is commending this woman because she's come to a point of recognizing her need. She recognizes that God is her source, and she the way she knows to honor God with her generosity is to put money in the temple, because that's how they did it. They just like we bring our tithes and offerings into church today. That's how they did it in that time. So she sees this giving as to God, and she's trusting God with her life by surrendering everything she has to God. She's trusting God and saying, God, you will come through for me, because even if these temple establishment are wicked, you're true.
So she's not trusting not putting her trust in the temple people. She's putting her trust in God.
I think so, because
the way you see it?
Yeah, that's the way I see it. I think so, because that's what seems to be going on when Jesus commends her for her generosity. He says this woman's given more. Admittedly, it doesn't say what her motive for giving it was. I guess that's where you're going. Was her motive that she was trusting in the establishment, or she was trusting in God? I think the absence of it, and to me it's a bit like Occam's razor. The simplest reading makes most sense, and to me it just seems like he's commending her for her generosity.
Well, I think because we've cut out the verses before it, I think it makes sense. But when you throw in the verses prior to it, I think you can read a different story. There.
Intriguing. I can't see how it's a different story, but I think what we more likely miss is we make it all about the widow, which is true. We should make it about the widow, but not only about the widow, because Jesus is using this widow's offering as a teaching point against greed, to rebuke.
Yes, because the Old Testament says that widows should be cared for, and she is obviously not cared for.
Yes, that's right.
And who is she cared for by? The temple.
She should have been.
Should have been.
Yes, that's right. And that's the story that I guess you're saying is missed if we only focus on the widow alone. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
And
agreed.
I know that this story has been used a lot in churches as reason for giving. But if we miss the part before it, we can just read it as, we should give everything that we can, without keep holding our pastors to account, our church leadership to account.
As to what you're doing with the resource. Absolutely.
We just give our resources to God and give everything that we have and trust Him.
Yeah.
Yet the sentences before it, God is saying the church, the temple is accountable.
Yes, and I think that's valid and fair. I would say that it might be oversimplistic to say that when I pay my tithes, I trust that I'm paying them to God, and when I give my offerings to God, I'm trusting I'm paying to God, and God will take care of that. But that can be used as an excuse for abusive leadership. So I think there's definitely truth in that we should be accountable for the way we the way we use our resources as a church and leadership, and making sure that we are doing the things that we should be doing with it to benefit God's kingdom and bring his kingdom to earth. But I don't see it as two separate stories. I think the woman's generosity and Jesus commending the woman for her sacrifice is contrasting her attitude with the attitude of those that he's rebuked in the verses immediately prior. He's rebuked them for their taking, actually. Even when you're giving, you're making such a song and dance about it that you're actually trying to take more glory and more accolades. So they're taking, and here's a woman who's got nothing to offer of any substance, and she's giving it all. And so he's using her as a contrast to them. And he's saying, which one do you want to be like? You'd be better off being like the one who gives, who has generosity. Okay, so I think that's the point. I know you're not advocating for. I think what I'm hearing you say is we should be confident that our leadership are using the church's resources well. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, partly.
Yeah.
But
well, I mean, we all know stories of where that hasn't happened. Let's face it. I mean, the news breaks with some story every week where that hasn't happened. But I think he's trying to contrast us. And if we're reading into this story, and what Jesus is saying to me is, don't be like those ones who make us sing a song and dance about your generosity, and don't be like ones who devour the poor for your own benefit. If there's a need in your church, if there's a need among you and you have the ability to do something about it, do something about it. Even if it costs you. In fact, if it doesn't cost you, you haven't done anything about it. I think, to me, that's the most simplest reading of the text. But maybe there's more there. There always is, Jeannie.
Yeah, there always is. But I believe in Occam's razor myself. So
yeah, okay. Sometimes, this is the crazy thing about sometimes scholars just go looking for things that, and they can speculate. It's fine. Nothing wrong with speculation, but make sure it's clear when you're speculating beyond the text. Otherwise, just try to stick to what is evident in the text as much as we can. And then beyond that, we just say, hey, it could be this, it could be that. Don't know. Don't build your doctrine upon it, but it doesn't mean you can't learn something from it.
That's true. I think you should always consider things from every angle.
Yep, it's good,
yes.
Good to do.
So Jesus in this, who is he?
He is the one who's receiving. Well, actually, no, let's just stick to this one. He is watching.
He is watching.
He sat there and he watched the offering.
I like it.
Jesus is watching, not from a distance, like Beth Midler would sing. Jesus was up close. He was sitting there with his disciples around him, watching people give. So he's interested. We talked about in yesterday's episode about he's in the church. He's watching. So that should be encouraging and sobering at the same time.
Bit of both.
How's that sound? Enough for today?
Yes.
All right, no worries. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you tomorrow.